Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is how to create a Grand Theft Auto style game in Unity, and welcome to episode 45. In this tutorial we're going to move away slightly from this side of development and we're going to start looking at creating a main menu. Don't forget, click the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial still to come in this series and everything else on game development on my channel. With that in mind, let's get to work. So a main menu can come in just a massive array of different forms. So I'm going to create a main menu which I feel is simple, easy to use, but can be highly customizable. You can have yours in a completely different way if you want to, but the general basics of it are going to be the same, i.e. clicking in certain places to do certain things. So we've created new scenes before, albeit not too many. I do believe we only have a couple, if I can remember where they were. So yeah, we have just these here. So we're going to create a brand new scene. So let's go to File and New Scene. And yep, let's save any changes that we have, obviously, because we don't want to lose them. And let's File, Save As, and let's make sure we save this in our Scenes folder. And we'll call this Main Menu. So we're back to a completely blank screen. Now, a main menu can come, like I say, visually as well in different ways. You know, we could have a completely black main menu. We could have something visually. I'm going to have that city block kind of with a camera panning maybe a little bit to give a bit of movement to it. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create the button functionality and we're going to get everything in place. So firstly, let's add a canvas and let's add something to it. So let's go to Game Object, let's go to UI, and let's go to Raw Image. Let's double click so we can zoom out. And I do believe that this is the wrong way round. I think we're looking at it the other way. Let's add some text. So UI, and let's go text. And let's pan around so we can see it correctly. Now, what I would like is, I've got an idea in my head of a slightly faded panel over this side with, you know, some stuff here, then the buttons to click, and then another panel here that we could have for like news or something, I guess, and then we're going to have the image in the middle. So firstly, let's take this raw image, let's change the color to black, and let's change the alpha to maybe about 100. Next, I am going to stretch probably upwards, I think. So stretch upwards, and let's place this 0, 0, and width. Let's have as what's a reasonable width? Let's have as 400, and then we just need to select our rectangle and snap it over to this side. So what that means is that depending on how big your screen ends up, it should always fit in the correct way. Speaking of which, let's go to our canvas and let's change the scaler. So the reason we change the scaler is so as it will fit to different screen sizes and won't look a bit weird and peculiar on different size screens or different resolutions. So let's change the UI scale mode and go scale with screen size. I'm going to set it by default as 1920 by 1080 and then match the width or height I'm going to have as exactly half. So that now means that we need to readjust where this position is, and it's always best to change your scale before you really do too much in your canvas. Most of the time, like with our other scenes, it doesn't really matter too much, at least not at the moment. So let's click Game View. I think that needs to be a little bit bigger. So let's stretch this out to about there. Cool. So now let's make this look a little bit more main menu-y, if that's even a word. So this text, let's change this to a game by Jimmy Vegas. You know, I'm just creating visuals here, really. It doesn't really have to say that if you don't want it to. Let's change the font size to something a little bigger, maybe 20. Stretch it out a little bit. And let's place it somewhere here. And how's that looking game view? Cool, that'll do. And now let's duplicate that text. And we'll have this as Grand Theft auto clone. And obviously, again, it all comes back to what you want it to be. You could change the font if you want to. Let's have the classic price down font, and let's have this a little bit bigger. And let's just have this as 60. Is that? I think that's probably... Actually, no, I've got a good idea. Let's have that again by Jimmy Vegas. Let's have that there. I'm going to change the word clone. I don't like that there. So close that. Duplicate. And then I'm going to have that as clone. I've got to make it very clear that this is a clone. This is not a Grand Theft Auto game for legal reasons. Let's change that to 200 is too big. Let's try 170. Is that still too big? Yeah, it'll do the trick. Let's have that there. Cool. Again by Jimmy Vegas, Grand Theft Auto clone. Again, it's all just stylization and how you want it to look. So now let's add in some buttons. Buttons that are going to function as the game for loading, to quit, some credits maybe. So game object, UI, and let's go to button. Now we're going to go a lot more into buttons probably next tutorial, but they are really good functional objects that you can use for different things, not necessarily as a button either. So let's enlarge this button a little bit. I want it to kind of fit maybe about there. Or should we have, in fact, do you know what? I think we should stretch it all the way across there. That now means that we need to change this to that. So what we've done there is we've changed the button size to permanently fit with the size of this column here. Let's change the font of the button, and let's change what the button says. So let's go to text, and let's have this as new game, and let's have the font as, let's have it as price down as well, because why not? Font size, let's have this as 60. And I'm thinking now, what do we want this to be? So what I'm thinking is we want to kind of highlight it when we're hovering over it rather than be highlighted like this right now. So what we'll do is we'll click on the button itself, and down here we've got the button items that we can change. So in this case, the normal color. So if we have normal color as completely see-through and then press play, let's see what happens. So you can see when we hover over it, we can actually select it. So that's cool. Do again. You see already we can click on that new button, but it doesn't matter too much, to be honest. It's something that we can end up changing. So when it's selected, obviously you can see a different highlighting color there. I might change the alpha of that block to maybe about 70. Yeah, we'll have it a little bit lower. Sorry, I'm just customizing my own game here theoretically, but you can have it as however you would want it. Okay, so let's rename that button to new. Let me change the caps lock. New game. Let's hold control, press D to duplicate. And let's bring it down to about there. And let's have this as load game. And obviously we have to change the text to say load game. Next, let's hold control, press D, bring it down once again to roughly about there. Obviously you should take a lot more time than what I'm doing for all of this. Let's have this as options, and then let's change the text to say options. Next, I'm gonna have, what should I have next? Let's have credits. So credits, and yep, you've guessed it, change the text to say it. And let's have a button for quit. I'm gonna have that a little bit further down, probably around there. So quit. And yep, you're right, you're probably way ahead of me now. Quit. So I'm going to save that scene. I'm going to press play. And there we go. Cool. So this main menu is coming together. Not as quick as I would like, but at the end of the day, you should customize this a lot more than what I am doing. So next thing we should try and do is let's add some kind of news section over the other side. So let's go game object. In fact, do you know what? No, let's cheat. Let's take this raw image. Let's rename it to button column. Hold Control, press D. And I'm going to move it over this side, but I'm actually going to shrink it just a little bit. And hopefully, if we go to game view, yep, that looks okay. And I think I'm going to have this as like a news section. So let's take this Grand Theft Auto text, duplicate. Let's bring it over here. But in fact, before we do anything, let's change how this looks, because at the moment it's anchored dead center. And if we change the screen size, that's going to look a little bit strange. So let's take those three text that we placed in earlier, and let's change the anchoring to top left. The reason being is because they will appear in a very strange position, and when the screen is resized or it's at the correct size, that is exactly where they will be. So let's change this one to anchor top right, and then let's change it to say news. Next, what we'll do is I'm going to add in a quick image. So let's go to image for now, and let's bring it to about there. Let's resize it to about there, and I'm going to anchor it top right once again. Now I'm not going to put an image in here for now because I don't really have one just yet, but we will get an image probably next tutorial after, once we've really got things going. So what we're going to do is we are going to add in some text here, which we're going to be able to manipulate later on down the line, that gives us some news. So let's change this text to say news. Hold Control, press D. Bring it down here below. There we go. Maybe reduce the font a little bit, so let's have that as 40. Some cool things are happening, if we can spell, in the game right now. Go check them out. And let's press play, have a quick look how that looks. Okay, cool. So this is coming together fairly well now. I'm quite pleased with how it's looking, but this is the general layout of what we now have as our main menu. So we've dealt with a couple new things here, haven't we? We've dealt with scaling a canvas correctly, and we've also dealt with buttons and adding buttons in. So next tutorial, what we're going to do is get those buttons functioning. Before I do go, though, I do think I need to quickly go over a couple of things here on the buttons as well. You can change how they look visually. For example, the source image you can change. For example, if we go to a knob and press play, over new game, you can see it highlights like that. I don't think that quite looks right. It looks a little bit strange. So I'm going to avoid how that looks for now. Maybe you could play around with the, for example, pressed color. Let's change it to completely black. So when we press play and go to there, you can see it changes to completely black. And I think it's entirely up to you how you want your game to look, but I would recommend definitely playing around with at least these 5 different colors. The disable one maybe not so much because no buttons are currently disabled, but I think we will disable the load game when we don't actually have a game to load. That will be coming up. So next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to add stuff to this main menu. We're going to make it look a little bit more attractive with a background, a little animation, and we're also going to get the buttons physically working so they actually do something rather than just sit there and do absolutely nothing. So until that next tutorial, thanks very much for watching, guys.